All right, so I wanted to show off some of the hardware that went into this ROSie Roomba robot. So let's start at the highest level. So at the highest level, I basically had this Roomba 580 that I had lying around. I actually won it in an iRobot competition a while back, and we used it quite a bit, and then the battery died, and we sort of stopped using it. So, anyways, I bought a new battery, and I decided to use it as a repurpose it, and it still has all of its original functionality, which is kind of cool. So it's not like completely trashed or anything, but now it has all this new functionality in it, which I think makes it even cooler. Um, the chassis for my project enclosure box is basically an old Mac Mini that a friend gave me, and I basically gutted out the whole thing and just put all of my electric components in it. So I'll pop open the top here and show you what the inside looks like. So you can see it's all completely gutted out, and all of my electrical components fit in here pretty nicely. So that's kind of cool. I'll put that there for now. The camera that I'm using is a Microsoft LifeCam. The nice thing about this camera is that it doesn't require an externally powered USB hub. So it can just be powered directly from the Raspberry Pi. And a lot of webcams that you can get for the Raspberry Pi don't actually have that feature, and this one does, so that was kind of nice. And then there's also two servos. They're on a pan and tilt bracket that I got from SparkFun. And they're two little micro servos. One is driving up and down, and then this guy down here is on a custom bracket that I built and just screwed onto the back of the Mac Mini that drives the camera left and right. All right, let's dig into the electronic components. Okay, so on the left here, at the bottom down here, is the Raspberry Pi. On top of it is a breakout board that I got from Adafruit. It's basically a prototyping board. Some of the key components on here you can see on the very bottom left of that breakout board are all of the headers, GPIOs, and I2Cs and SPIs coming up from the Raspberry Pi. We also feed in power down into that guy, so our 5 volts goes directly through those pins. These FETs that I have back here are basically for voltage translation. The way we talk to the Roomba is through a UART interface that ramps from 0 to 5 volts, but the Raspberry Pi speaks 3.3 volts. So I had to use a couple of level shifters that I built out of FETs to talk to the Roomba. I had a header here, this one that's not populated, for a display that I had lying around, but at the end of the day it's covered up and I sort of abandoned that idea. This cable here coming out that you can see that's got some blue electrical tape on it is actually the cable that goes out to the Roomba. This board that's sitting on top of it is another Adafruit board. It's a breakout for the PCA 9685, which is an I2C controlled PWM module that I use to control the servo motors. There was already built-in support for that guy through WebIO so it seemed like the easiest choice was to just buy that module. Connected to the Raspberry Pi USB, the top blinking blue USB guy is our Wi-Fi module, and underneath that is the webcam USB plug. All right, so that is the Raspberry Pi side of things. Across from it is the power module. The switching board that's on the bottom that you can see through the wires there is a TI Nano module. Its part number is LMR24220. This is a module that will, it's a switching regulator that takes in the 16 to 20 volts from the battery and then brings it down to 5 volts, and it's very, very efficient. I think it has like 95 to 98% efficiency. So that's pretty good. And it was just a part that I had lying around. It's actually a dev kit that I got from TI, and I just decided to just use it for this project because everything was already soldered down. The part is really small, and I didn't feel like, soldering it or finding some way to get it onto a PCB or something like that. So instead, I just used the little dev board that they gave me. Above that is this Pololu power switch, which I've actually used before in a reverse geocache project. What it basically does is it lets you use a momentary push button to turn on power, to route power. So the idea was that I would basically use this on-off power switch that's on the back of the Mac to turn on and off this project. But what I found that was with this Pololu power switch, that because we're running anywhere from 16 to 20 volts, it's really finicky. Sometimes if you push the button once or twice, it will turn on, and sometimes you can't even turn it off. So I ended up abandoning the whole thing. I mean, it's still soldered down on the board just because I didn't want to remove it. And instead I installed this just switch basically on the back so I can just quickly power on and off. I think it flushes nice. It would have been nice to use the button that's built into the Mac, but that's okay. This switch isn't too obtrusive. Okay, so now power coming in, actually so you can see here that these two ports that I have on the Roomba, the guy on the left is only currently used for communications, although the Roomba specifications do say that there are two unregulated battery pins coming out of there and also two ground pins. But pretty late in the game, I actually found out that there's a polyfuse connected to that guy that's rated for anywhere from 200 to 250 milliamps. And I was actually triggering that guy whenever I was moving both those servos and having the webcam drive at the same time. So that didn't work out. So I ended up abandoning that guy and ended up taking apart the whole Roomba and soldering down some wires directly into some battery pins that I found on their PCB. So before the polyfuse, basically. So I'm basically bypassing the polyfuse. You know, I've been using this system for a while now, and I'm pretty confident that I'm not shorting anything or pulling too much current or anything like that. The Roomba also has built-in current sensors, so I've been keeping an eye on that, and I haven't tripped anything yet. So far, so good. So this hole that's drilled in on the right with these cables coming up is actually the unregulated and no polyfuse power from the battery coming up and around into the back of the Mac Mini. I actually just took an old PC power cable, like one of those power cables that goes into hard drives, and repurposed that as my power cable into the box. So that's pretty much it. That's a pretty good overview, I think, of all of the hardware that went into building this guy. Let's see. So the top sits flush, nothing's pushing up on it, which is nice. And that's what it looks like. Cool. So I'm pretty happy with it. You know, it looks nice. It doesn't look all wiry and all prototypey. I mean, on the inside of the Mac Mini it does, but from the outside it actually looks like a cool little product that I just took a Roomba and added onto it. So cool. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.